Before we begin, pause for just a second. If you're someone who believes stories can change us, if you've ever loved someone and later realized you never truly knew them, if you've ever felt that quiet fear in your chest when something feels wrong, but you don't yet have proof, then before anything else, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join this small corner of the internet where real stories live. Here, we don't tell perfect stories. We tell honest ones. Stories that bruise before they heal. Stories that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Stories about love, betrayal, truth, and the dangerous silence that grows when people stop saying what needs to be said. Every week, I share emotional true stories pulled straight from real life. Stories about the unpredictable things that happen inside the human heart. So if you believe that stories matter, that they can shake us, comfort us, and sometimes even save us, you're exactly where you're meant to be. Now take a breath, because what I'm about to share with you isn't just a story. It's a moment. One single night that shattered everything I thought I understood about loyalty, about family, and about the quiet courage hidden inside the people we least expect. This is the night my stepson came home drunk and told me the truth that destroyed my marriage. My name is Emily Carter, and this is what really happened. It started on what I believed was an ordinary Friday night. The kind of night that feels uneventful while you're living it. Quiet, predictable, forgettable. The kind you never imagine will split your life into a before and an after. The house was silent, wrapped in that deep, late evening stillness where even the walls seemed to be resting. Outside, the streetlights cast soft orange shadows through the living room windows. Somewhere in the distance, a car passed, tires hissing against the pavement. I had just finished cleaning the kitchen. The last dish was dried and placed back into the cabinet. The counters were wiped down. The faint scent of lemon cleaner lingered in the air. It was my small ritual, ending the day by putting things in order. Control, even in tiny forms, had always comforted me. I turned off the light, grabbed my phone, and was about to head upstairs when I heard it. The sound was soft at first. A metallic rattle. Then again longer this time. The front door knob. My body stiffened instantly. I hadn't heard Tom's car pull in. And it was too early for him to be home anyway. He'd texted earlier, like he had been doing more and more often lately. Running late. Work stuff. The door creaked open. A second later, Jake stumbled inside. Even before he stepped fully into the light, the smell hit me. Not just alcohol. Yes, there was vodka, sharp and biting. Beer too stale and heavy. But underneath it all was something darker. Something thicker. A scent that didn't belong to partying or bad decisions. Regret. Anger. Pain. Jake swayed slightly as he closed the door behind him. His movements were clumsy, unsteady, like his body wasn't entirely listening to him anymore. This wasn't like him. Jake wasn't reckless. He wasn't wild. He was a college kid, sure. But he was usually calm, reserved, almost guarded. He drank socially, occasionally, but never like this. Tonight he looked undone. His eyes were bloodshot, glassy. His shirt was wrinkled and half untucked, like he'd stopped caring somewhere along the way. His hair was a mess, fingers having run through it again and again in frustration. When he finally lifted his gaze to me, something in my chest tightened. There are moments when your intuition speaks louder than logic. This was one of them. Something was very, very wrong. Jake, I said softly, already moving toward him. Are you okay? He didn't answer right away. He stared at me for a long second, like he was deciding whether to say something, or whether to keep holding it inside. Then he laughed. Not a happy laugh. Not even a drunk one. It was bitter. Hollow. The sound someone makes when they're exhausted from carrying too much. Before I tell you what Jake said next, before I tell you how my entire life cracked open in the span of minutes, you need to understand how we got here. Because stories don't begin at the moment everything falls apart. They begin long before that. In the quiet places where we believe we're safe. I met Tom when I was 38 years old. By then I was divorced, tired, and deeply disappointed in love. I had spent years giving my heart to people who didn't know what to do with it. People who mistook kindness for weakness. People who took and took until there was nothing left. My first marriage had ended slowly, painfully, with silence replacing conversation and distance replacing affection. By the time it was over, I felt like I'd failed at something fundamental. Love had started to feel like a language I was no longer fluent in. Then one evening, at a small community fundraiser, I met Tom. He wasn't loud. He wasn't charming in the obvious way. He didn't try to impress anyone. He just existed. Steady, grounded, calm. At one point, I was struggling to carry several heavy boxes out to my car. I hadn't wanted to ask for help. I'd learned to rely on myself, but suddenly he was there, lifting one of the boxes with an easy smile. "Looks like you could use an extra hand," he said. That small moment turned into a conversation. The conversation turned into laughter. The laughter turned into something warmer. He listened when I spoke. Really listened. He asked thoughtful questions and remembered my answers. He didn't rush me or interrupt. He made space. By the end of the night, I wasn't just hopeful. I was convinced that maybe, just maybe, life was giving me a second chance. A year later, Tom and I were married. And for a while, life felt peaceful. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Just steady. Like finally stepping inside after years of standing in the rain. Tom worked as a financial consultant. He was punctual, neat, careful with his words. He liked routines. Coffee at 7:15, the gym twice a week, short walks after dinner. I owned a small floral shop downtown. It wasn't big, but it was mine. My days were filled with color, fragrance, and a quiet joy I'd always wanted. On weekends, we cooked together. Pasta one night. Stir-fry the next. We laughed about silly things, burnt garlic, forgotten onions. Life felt normal. And normal felt like a gift. Tom's son Jake was away at college then. I'd met him briefly before the wedding. He was polite but distant. Quiet. Watchful. He didn't call me Mom. I didn't expect him to. All I wanted was to be a safe place in his life, not a replacement, not an intruder. When he came home for Christmas, I noticed how careful he was. How he kept his emotions locked away. How respectful but guarded he remained. I understood. Children of divorce learn early how to build walls. I didn't push him. But quietly, I hoped that one day he'd trust me enough to step into my world. They say peace doesn't always disappear in a storm. Sometimes it fades like a whisper, slowly, quietly, until one day you realize it's gone. For me, it started with Tom coming home late. At first, there were texts. Meeting ran long. Client emergency. Be home soon. I believed him. I wanted to believe him. My first marriage had ended because I feared the worst too often. I promised myself I wouldn't become that woman again. But then the text stopped. Tom began walking through the door after midnight. Not drunk. Just slightly buzzed. Smelling faintly of whiskey and perfume. Not mine. A sweet floral scent I didn't recognize. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself love meant trust. But the ache began growing. Quiet at first. Then sharper. Then impossible to ignore. A few weeks later, Jake came home for the summer. He was taller now. Leaner. Older. But his eyes were different. He barely spoke to Tom. They passed each other like strangers sharing a hallway. Jake lingered around the house, fixing things that didn't need fixing. He watched me sometimes with a look I couldn't name. One evening, I found him sitting alone, staring at a blank television screen. Rough day? I asked. He shrugged. Then laughed bitterly. College? I asked gently. No, he said. Just life. That was the first time I saw it. The pain. The secret. The wedge between father and son. And then came that Friday night. The night everything unraveled. At 11:30 p.m., Jake stumbled through the door. Drunk. Angry. Broken. Jake. I rushed to him. Are you okay? He waved me off, trying to hold himself together. Then he looked at me. And I will never forget that look. It was the face of someone who had carried the truth for too long. Don't pretend you don't know, he muttered. My heart skipped. Know what? He collapsed onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. Dad, he said bitterly. He's not who you think he is. Jake, you're drunk. No, he snapped, looking straight at me. I'm not lying, Emily. His voice cracked.